First of all, I just want to touch upon a couple of comments that I've heard from colleagues. Peter Chapman there actually complained about the £47 million going to the budget for next year for that yard. And he also quoted it saying that the order was given to the wrong yard. His final comments actually were really quite astounding. I mean, if the order was given to the wrong yard, the yard would have shut. The yard wouldn't have been there. We wouldn't have over 400 people employed at that yard. So his comments are actually quite ridiculous. Then we've got the Greens. Remove CML from Port Glasgow. Take jobs away from Port Glasgow. Take more jobs away from Inverclyde. Then the Labour Party has Colin Smith's comments calling for a criminal investigation into the awarding of the contract. So Labour don't actually want the order, don't want the work at Ferguson's and Port Glasgow. I'm looking forward to putting that in my election leaf for May. And also in terms of Graham Simpson's comments earlier on, scrap CMAL. And so that's jobs to be lost. And then he also complained about the loans, the £50 million and the £30 million loan. That finance, as well as other things, actually helped secure this yard and kept the yard. I've only got 4 minutes, Mr Simpson. I normally do take interventions, but not today. Saying also, I note the report and the recommendations of the report, but I do respectfully disagree with parts of it. I do agree with some parts, but respectfully disagree with others. Not one person can state that what's happened at the yard over many years has been positive. Not one person. And as a constituency MSP for Grinton and Inverclyde, as someone who grew up in Port Glasgow, and also the son of a coppersmith whose last job was working at the yard, my loyalty has always been towards the yard. I want the yard, I'm sorry, I can't take any. I want the yard to succeed. I want the yard to build more ships, and I want the yard to employ more people and have a future for many decades to come. Now, I've never been particularly vexed about the ownership or the management of the yard. I'm not really fussed as to whether it's a nationalised yard or whether it's a privatised yard. It's about the success of the yard. It's about the jobs. It's about the future. It's about apprenticeships. And certainly, as we currently stand, it's about the completion of these ships to ensure that we can build more ships in the future. Now, the report is full of many aspects, but what is clear to the independent reader is that the Scottish Government has consistently supported the yard and its workforce. And I'm glad that the committee itself have inadvertently recognised that by the final bullet point in section 71 on page 29. And my constituency, my community welcome the fact that the Scottish Government have proceeded and saved the yard. From the awarding of the contract, which was won fairly, to the two loans of the £50 million and the £30 million, to the rescue of the yard, it's clear that this SNP government has more than stepped up to the plate to support shipbuilding on the Lower Clyde in my constituency. And I believe that the workforce, they know that, they know the local community knows that, and every single politician knows that, even though they will not say it publicly. Saying also, the report goes on to touch upon a number of things, including the future approach to standardising the vessels. And I agree with that. Robbie Drummond mentioned that certainly in his contribution. It's also in section 120. Section 129 and the evidence from CMAL about FML, a changing strategy after winning the contract, may go some way to helping explain section 96 and the damaging evidence from Tim Hare, the Turning Director, when he said, and I quote, 5% of them, that's the sign-offs of the basic design, were completed and 95% were not completed when we took control of the yard in August 2019. Presiding Officer, one thing is for certain, I want the future I want as much work as possible to go to Port Glasgow, and not the hulls to be built in Vietnam or lower-cost countries, then brought to Port Glasgow as described in the evidence on the 29th of January by Dr Alf Baird, or also the scrapping of the two vessels as advocated in the same evidence session by Roy Peterson. That would have resulted in mass job losses and also the possible closure of that yard. Now, my constituency, my community knows it's this SNP government that saved that yard, saved the jobs, and they now have a future. Thank you very much.